Lost kid asked a biker. Can you take me home? The ride he got was unbelievable. The kid appeared so suddenly on the side of that lonely highway that Cole almost thought he was imagining things. Just a small shadow stepping out of the tall grass. A shape too tiny to belong in a place this empty. The sun had nearly dipped behind the Timber Ridge Mountains, throwing a deep orange glow across the cracked road, when the motorcycle's engine echoed through the stillness. The child didn't run. He didn't hide. He just stood there as the bike approached, like he had been waiting for this exact rider, on this exact road, at this exact hour. Before the story begins, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Now let's get into it. Cole Maddox slowed the cruiser to a crawl, squinting behind his visor as the figure became clearer. A boy, no older than 8. T-shirt dusty, hair messy, arms hanging limp at his sides. His breathing was fast, almost panicked, but he wasn't crying. Something about that was wrong. Kids lost in the middle of nowhere usually cried. The bike rolled to a stop, engine rumbling like distant thunder in the silence. Cole flipped his visor up, the sharp scent of pine drifting in with the cooling air. You all right, kid? He called out. The boy took a shaky breath, stepped closer, and his voice cracked like it hadn't been used in hours. Can you take me home? Cole stared, not because of the words themselves, but because of the way the boy said them. Straight. Hollow. Like he'd already asked that question before, and no one listened. The man slid off the bike, boots hitting the gravel with a heavy thud. Instinct told him to check the area first. Left, right, behind him, into the tree line. No car. No adult. No movement. Just the faint prints of small shoes in the dirt, and larger tire tracks heading north. What's your name? Cole asked gently. Evan, the boy whispered. You hurt? He shook his head. Where's your family? I don't know. Cole crouched down, eye level with him. He had seen fear in kids before, overseas, in the Corps, in places no child should ever have been. But this wasn't battlefield panic. This was something quieter, something that had been happening for hours. Tell me what happened, Cole said. Evan's small shoulders lifted and dropped. I fell asleep in the car. When I woke up, nobody was there anymore. The door was open. I got out. I called for them, but I think they left. Cole felt his jaw clench. No parent leaves a kid on a forgotten rest stop road unless something was wrong. Very wrong. How long were you walking? He asked. Evan blinked at the sky like he was trying to remember, then pointed toward the distant horizon where the sun was fading. Since it was up there, he said. It was hotter. Hours. Alone. Barely hydrated. A kid like this wouldn't last long out here after dark. Not with coyotes, not with the cold, not with the roads emptying at nightfall. Cole uncapped a bottle of water from his saddlebag, handing it over. Evan drank too fast, coughing, but held on as if the bottle itself was a lifeline. Easy, Cole murmured. You gotta breathe. Evan lowered the bottle, hands trembling lightly. You said you wanted to go home, Cole reminded him. Do you know the address? The town. I know the house, Evan said quietly. It's blue, with a big tree outside. And there's a swing, and a mailbox with a bird on it. The kid's voice cracked at the last part, eyes watering, though he fought hard not to let the tears fall. Okay, Cole said. We'll figure it out. Can you take me home? Evan asked again, softer, like he was scared the answer might change. Cole didn't hesitate this time. Yeah, he said. I'll take you home. That's a promise. He reached into the side compartment of the bike and pulled out a small helmet, a backup he kept for emergencies. Evan slipped it on, and it sat awkwardly but safely. Cole lifted him up onto the seat in front. You ever been on a motorcycle? He asked. Evan shook his head. Then hang on tight. You let go, you fall off. Deal. Evan's hands grabbed the bars immediately. Deal. Cole climbed on behind him, bracing the boy with one arm as he thumbed the ignition. The cruiser roared to life, vibrating beneath them. Evan flinched at first, then slowly relaxed as the engine settled into its familiar growl. The moment Cole turned onto the road, something caught his eye, the tire tracks again. Wide tread, deep impressions. An SUV or a truck. Fresh. Heading north. Cole kept his voice calm when he leaned close enough for Evan to hear him over the engine. Which way do you think your car went? He asked. Evan pointed forward, toward the same direction as the tracks. That way, he said. All right, Cole replied. We'll start there. The bike rolled down the highway, the wind lifting the ends of Evan's shirt, the shadows growing long across the asphalt. Cole kept one hand on the bars, one arm steady around the boy, eyes constantly moving. The road, the forest, the horizon, the tracks fading gradually beside them. Something about this didn't sit right. A lost kid was one thing. A kid abandoned with fresh tire tracks heading away? Something else entirely. You doing okay, Evan? Cole asked after a minute. The boy nodded, leaning slightly back into the safety of Cole's arm. You scared? Cole added. A little. Ain't nothing wrong with that, Cole said. Being scared means you're still thinking. Still aware. That's a good thing. Evan seemed to take comfort in that. They rode another mile before Cole spotted something glinting in the road up ahead. Small, metallic, catching the dying light. He slowed, rolled closer, lifted it from the ground. A keychain. Blue plastic. Cartoon dinosaur. The same dinosaur on Evan's shirt. You dropped this? Cole asked. Evan's breath hitched. That was in the car, he whispered. My mom bought it for me. Cole stared at the keychain a moment longer, then at the empty stretch of road disappearing toward the darker woods up ahead. This wasn't a simple case of a kid wandering off. Something had happened. Something recent. And whoever drove away hadn't wanted to be followed. Cole tucked the keychain into his vest. The bike rumbled forward again, deeper into the quiet. And miles behind them, hidden just out of sight, a pair of headlights blinked on. Someone else was on that road. Someone who had been watching them from the trees. The wind grew cooler as the bike carried them farther down Highway 27, the sky turning from orange to a deeper purple. Cole kept his posture stiff but relaxed enough not to scare the boy. His right hand guided the throttle. His left arm held Evan steady against him. Every few seconds he checked his mirrors, not obviously, not enough to signal concern, but enough to track the road behind them. It stayed empty for now. Evan shifted slightly, trying to peer over the bars at the changing scenery. Is this the way to town? He asked cautiously. Eventually, Cole said. But right now we're following the direction your car took. If they're searching for you, they'll be on this road. Evan didn't say anything to that. He just gripped tighter. Cole didn't push him for more. Kids processed fear differently. Sometimes talking helped. Sometimes silence was their way of holding all the pieces together. And this kid, judging by the trembling in those small shoulders, was holding on by threads. The cruiser rolled deeper into the stretch of highway that truckers called the dead zone, mostly because cell service dropped to nothing and the nearest house was nearly 8 miles off the main road. No neighborhoods, no cabins, just forest and the occasional glimpse of old logging paths. A place easy to get lost in. A place even easier to hide in. Cole eased off the throttle slightly as they reached a curve. The tire tracks he'd been following became harder to see in the dimming light, but he kept track of the faint impressions in the gravel shoulder. Wide tread, heavy vehicle, consistent speed. Whoever drove it hadn't stopped since leaving the rest area. You Cole? Cole asked, noticing Evan's knees drawing inward. A little. Cole shifted, pulling his vest forward enough to shield the boy from the wind. His leather wasn't meant to be a blanket, but it helped. Better? He asked. Yeah, Evan whispered. Another mile passed. Then another. That's when Cole noticed something up ahead. Not a sign. Not a car. Something smaller. Dark. Sitting dead center on the road like it had been placed there. He slowed immediately. As the bike crawled forward, the object became clearer. A stuffed animal. A small brown bear with one missing eye, sitting upright in the middle of the asphalt as if waiting for them. Cole's gut tightened. Evan, he said quietly. That yours? Evan stiffened. Teddy, he breathed. That's my Teddy. Cole didn't touch the brakes too hard. Sudden stops unnerved kids, but he did bring the bike to a steady halt beside the stuffed bear. He kept the engine running, adrenaline now quietly threading into his bloodstream. You sure this is yours? He asked. Yes, Evan said, his voice rising. He was with me in the car. Cole studied the bear. It wasn't dirty. It wasn't torn. It wasn't weathered. It hadn't been run over. It hadn't been here long. Someone had placed it here, and that someone had known the kid would see it. Cole looked behind them again. Empty road. No headlights. No dust clouds. But he didn't relax. Things were too deliberate. He bent down with one hand and picked up the bear. Evan hugged it instantly, burying his face in the soft fabric like it was the last piece of home he had left. Thank you, he whispered. Don't thank me yet, Cole murmured, not to scare him, but because the situation was shifting into something darker. He needed to find out what exactly this kid had walked away from. Cole put the bike into gear and eased forward again. But this time, he didn't follow the tracks blindly. He watched the edges of the road more carefully. The bushes, the breaks in the tree-line, the small dirt turnouts. He was aware of every detail, the kind of awareness drilled into him from years in the service and sharpened on the road. Something wasn't adding up. If the parents had lost him accidentally, they would have been searching frantically. They would have turned back the moment they noticed he was gone. But the tracks were smooth, uninterrupted, speeding away. A parent running from something? Or a parent running from nothing except the kid himself? Cole didn't like either answer. "You okay back there?" he asked. "I'm fine," Evan murmured, though his voice trembled. "You trust me?" Cole asked, not expecting an immediate answer. But Evan didn't hesitate. "Yes." That did something to Cole. People didn't trust easily. Adults didn't trust bikers easily. But kids saw differently. They saw intention, tone, body language. And right now, Evan saw him as the only safe thing on a road full of shadows. About 10 more minutes passed before the faint buzz of a distant engine reached Cole's ears, too far back to see yet, but close enough that he felt it before he confirmed it. A car, moving slow, same direction they'd come from. It could have been a coincidence. But in all the hours Cole had ridden this route, he'd rarely seen cars this deep in the dead zone at dusk. Evan turned his head slightly. "What was that?" he asked. "Just a car," Cole lied gently. "Keep facing forward." Cole didn't speed up. That would only raise alarms for whoever was behind them, if they were watching, but he did maintain a steady pace. He checked his mirrors more often now. Just a faint glimmer, then gone, then a glimmer again. Someone was back there. Not tailing, tracking. He needed to get Evan somewhere less exposed. The bike rolled past a faded sign half covered in vines. Miller's Station, 3 miles. The old gas stop. The one that had closed down years ago, but still had a parking lot and visibility in all directions. Cole made a decision. He leaned down slightly, so Evan could hear him. "We're going to stop up ahead for a second," he said. "Just to rest." "Okay." The boy didn't question him, a good sign. 3 minutes later, the abandoned gas station came into view. Rusted pumps, broken windows, graffiti from local teens. But it sat atop a small rise with good sight lines. Cole pulled in. He kept the engine running. The sun had almost vanished entirely now, sinking behind the ridgeline and leaving the world washed in deep blue. "Why are we stopping?" Evan asked. Cole slid off the bike slowly. "Just stretching my legs," he said. "You stay right there, okay?" Evan nodded, hugging his teddy tighter. Cole stepped a few feet away from the bike, eyes narrowing as he stared back down the highway. Nothing. No headlights. No engine anymore. Quiet. Too quiet. Then, faintly, a flash of something metallic between the trees. Low. Not a car. A bumper? A mirror? Something idling with the lights off. Watching. Cole didn't show a reaction. He simply walked back to the bike, calm and steady. "We're going to take a different road," he said to Evan. "Just a safer one." "Are we in trouble?" Evan asked softly. Cole settled onto the seat again. "No," he lied kindly. "But somebody else might be." He revved the engine once, low, controlled, and turned the bike toward the back road that led around Miller's Ridge. Behind them, in that shadowed tree-line, an engine quietly started. The hunt was on. The back road curled like a dark ribbon through the trees, far narrower than the highway and cracked from years of abandonment. It was the kind of path only locals knew, the kind the county never bothered to repave because nobody used it unless they were avoiding being seen. Cole kept the bike steady, guiding them around potholes and fallen branches with skill that came from decades of riding through places rougher than this. The forest thickened on both sides, swallowing the last traces of sunlight until the world turned into a tunnel of dim blues and muted shadows. Evan pressed closer against him, the boy's small hands gripping the bars tightly, his breath soft but quick. "Where are we going now?" he asked, voice muffled by the helmet. "Shortcut," Cole said. "Gets us to town without anyone following." He didn't want to say more. Not yet. Not until he had a better idea of what they were dealing with. The air cooled sharply as night settled in. Crickets chirped from the undergrowth. Leaves rustled high above. And somewhere far behind them, faint but unmistakable, came the low hum of an engine trying its best to stay quiet. Evan didn't hear it. Cole did. He checked his mirror. Nothing but darkness broken by flashes of trees. Cole, Evan whispered. Yeah. Why would someone leave Teddy in the road? Cole swallowed. That's what I'm trying to figure out. But that means whoever had him was close. Yeah, Cole admitted. Close. Evan's shoulders tightened. He didn't ask another question. They rode on for another half-mile before the road widened slightly, opening into a clearing where an old maintenance hut sat rotting in the shadows. The place had once been used by forest workers, but now it was little more than a shed with a sagging roof and a broken lantern hanging crooked from a nail. Cole slowed just enough to think. He needed a plan. A real one. Not just keep riding and hope for the best. Evan, he said gently, you said you woke up and your mom wasn't in the car. Can you tell me anything else? Anything at all. The boy fidgeted with his teddy. I remember yelling. My mom and someone else. A man. They were arguing. Cole felt a slow, cold knot form in his chest. What were they arguing about? I don't know. But Mom was crying. And she kept saying, don't do this. Cole's grip on the bars tightened. And then my door opened. Someone grabbed me, but just by my arm. Not like picking me up. More like pulling me. Then I fell asleep. Evan paused. But I think someone put something over my face. Cole's heart dropped. Something? Like a cloth. I don't know, Evan whispered. It smelled funny. Made me tired. Cole knew that smell. Every veteran did. Chloroform. This wasn't a lost kid. This was a kidnapping. But something had gone wrong, or someone changed their mind, because Evan had been dumped alive and alone, close enough to wander. Left on purpose? By accident? Or because the kidnapper got scared? Cole didn't like any of the possibilities. Evan, he said calmly. Do you know the man who was yelling? No. Do you know what kind of car your mom drives? Blue. Big. It has a crack in the windshield. That made Cole stop breathing for a moment. He'd seen a cracked windshield on a SUV parked at the Timber Ridge Diner earlier that afternoon. He noticed it because the cracks spread like a spiderweb across the passenger's side, the kind of break that suggested impact, not temperature. He didn't see who drove it, but now he wished he had paid more attention. The road dipped downhill, and Cole steadied the bike. Ahead, the forest seemed to thin again, just slightly, giving him a clearer view. He exhaled slowly, letting his thoughts align. Evan, he said, I'm going to ask you something important. You remember which direction your mom's car was facing when you found yourself alone? It was pointing toward the woods, Evan said after thinking. Not the road. The hairs on Cole's neck prickled. Someone had driven into the woods. Not along the highway. Into the trees. A place you only went if you had a reason. Cole, Evan whispered suddenly. Do you think Mom's looking for me? The boy had asked the question so carefully, so hopefully, that the silence after it felt cruel. Cole placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Yeah, kid. I do. And I'm going to get you back to her. That wasn't the whole truth. But it was a promise he intended to keep. Up ahead, the road forked. One path leading toward town, the other toward the interior of the ridge where the logging roads disappeared in winding loops. Cole didn't have long to decide. A faint glow flashed between the trees behind them. Headlights again. Quick. Subtle. Trying not to be noticed. Too late. Cole revved the engine and leaned into the fork, heading toward the ridge. Evan tightened his grip. Are we running? He asked. No, Cole said. We're staying ahead. Same thing. But he didn't want to scare the boy more than he already was. The bike roared down the narrower trail, tires biting into the gravel. The air grew colder. A fog crept low across the ground, swirling around the wheels as if trying to grab at them. And then, from somewhere deeper in the woods, came a single sharp sound. A snapping branch. Cole's eyes darted toward the left side of the clearing. Something moved in the brush. Heavy. Deliberate. Not an animal. A person. Evan felt Cole's body tense. What is it? He whispered. Eyes forward, Cole said. You're safe. I've got you. He meant it. But this was becoming more dangerous than he expected. Ahead, the ridge rose, dotted with old paths and forgotten trails. Cole had ridden them before. He knew where they connected, where they dead-ended, where he'd have the advantage. He just needed a few more minutes. As they entered a wider clearing, he slowed and glanced back one more time. A dark SUV eased onto the back road they had just left. No headlights. No noise. Just silent movement. And in the driver's seat, illuminated for barely a second by a sliver of moonlight, was a silhouette watching them. Evan saw it too. "That's not my mom's car," he whispered, voice shaking. Cole exhaled. "No," he said quietly. "It's not." The SUV paused in the clearing, then rolled forward again. Slow. Patient. Intentional. They were being hunted. Cole adjusted his grip, revved the engine hard, and sent the bike shooting deeper into the ridge. Behind them, the SUV followed. And somewhere ahead, unseen, unheard, something else waited in the trees. Something that belonged to this forest. And something that wasn't alone. The kid's voice still echoed in Cole's mind as the bike rolled deeper into the night, the wind cutting through the silence that neither of them dared to break. He kept glancing at the mirror, watching the boy's small hands clutch the back handle, knuckles pale, eyes fixed on the road ahead. The way the kid held on wasn't like someone enjoying a ride. It was like someone bracing for whatever horrible thing waited at the end of it. Cole slowed as they reached the edge of town. The neighborhood signs were old, some bent, some covered in graffiti. The kid lifted a shaking finger and pointed left. Cole leaned into the turn, the bike humming, the street dim and empty except for the flickering streetlights. Every instinct he had honed from years on the road, from years in the military before that, told him this wasn't a normal, lost kid situation. Something darker sat behind the boy's quietness. "You good back there?" Cole finally asked, raising his voice over the engine. A small pause. "I think so." The hesitation pierced him harder than a scream ever could. They rode another minute before the boy tapped his shoulder. Cole eased the bike to a near crawl. Houses here looked bruised, chipped paint, broken fences, the kind of place where neighbors didn't look out their windows after a certain hour. The boy pointed at a narrow house with a single porch light barely glowing. "That's it," he whispered. Cole pulled to the curb and shut off the engine. The sudden silence felt heavy. The boy climbed off slowly, like every step closer to that house was a step toward a memory he wished he didn't have. "Thanks," he muttered. His shoulders curled inward, like he was trying to shrink from the world. Cole didn't move. Something in the kid's body language was screaming, even though his voice wasn't. "Want me to walk you up?" Cole asked gently. The kid froze. Not just paused, froze. He turned his head slightly, but not enough for Cole to see his eyes. "No, my dad doesn't like visitors." There it was. The first crack of truth in the story he'd been too scared to tell. Cole swung one leg over and stood up. He lowered his voice. "What's your name, kid?" A long silence. "Evan." "Evan," Cole repeated softly. "You sure you're safe going in alone?" Evan swallowed. "He'll be mad I left." Not worried. Not scared I was missing. Mad. Cole felt something old waking up in his chest. Something protective. Something dangerous. Before he could speak, the front door slammed open. A man stepped onto the porch, thick neck, beer gut, a half-crushed cigarette between his fingers. His eyes locked onto Evan first, then shifted to Cole, and they hardened instantly. "Where the hell have you been?" the man barked. "And who the hell is that?" Evan flinched so hard his shoulders jerked up to his ears. Cole stayed still, his voice calm and even. "He got lost. I brought him home." The man stomped down the steps, puffing his chest like a rooster ready for a fight. "I didn't ask you to bring him anywhere, biker boy," the man snapped. "Mind your damn business." Cole felt his jaw clench, but he didn't move. Evan took 3 tiny backward steps as his father approached, like he was trying to disappear in slow motion. "He asked me for help," Cole said steadily. Kid was scared. The man grabbed Evan by the arm, hard. The boy sucked in a breath, not a cry but the kind of sound someone makes when they're used to swallowing pain. Cole stepped forward. "Let go of him." The man turned, glaring. "You don't tell me what to do with my own kid." Evan's arm was already red where the fingers dug in. The boy's eyes darted between Cole and his father, silently begging for something he didn't know how to ask for. Kid didn't look lost. The man spat. He looked like he was running. Cole's voice lowered, the kind of tone that once made grown men freeze in combat zones. Maybe because he was. The father yanked Evan toward the door. Evan stumbled, panic flashing across his face. Cole moved faster than the man expected, blocking the stairs with one step, his presence towering without raising a fist. You need to release his arm, Cole said quietly. Now. The man puffed up even more. Or what? Cole didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence was a warning all on its own. But the man didn't listen. He shoved Evan behind him and jabbed a finger into Cole's chest. Big mistake. You bikers think you're tough? Get off my property. Cole's hand snapped up. Not violent, not a hit, just a firm grip on the man's wrist that made him freeze mid-motion. You don't lay hands on a kid like that, Cole said, low and calm, which somehow made it even more threatening. The man's eyes flickered. Fear slid into them, but just as fast, something uglier replaced it. Resentment, pride, stubbornness. The kind of man who'd rather break something than admit he was wrong. He jerked his wrist free, grabbed Evan again, and dragged him toward the house. This time Evan looked at Cole directly, not with fear, but with a silent plea. Help me. That was it. Cole took one single step, but before he could act, a window from across the street slid open. You better leave that boy alone, an old woman shouted. I've seen enough of your crap. Another porch light turned on. Then another. Neighbors started peeking out, muttering, watching. The father froze, realizing the eyes were on him. But he still didn't let go of Evan. Cole took a breath. This was about to get very complicated, and the kid was running out of time. Evan's father shoved him through the door and slammed it shut so hard the glass rattled. Cole stood there, fists clenched at his sides, breath steady, heart burning. He wasn't leaving. Not tonight. Not until he knew Evan was safe. And as he reached into his pocket and felt his phone vibrate, he looked down and saw the name on the screen. A friend from the biker crew. Perfect timing. Cole exhaled slowly. Yeah, he murmured. I'm gonna need some help. He stared at the dark, silent house. This was far from over. Cole didn't move from that sidewalk for a long moment. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that never meant peace. Only pressure, simmering behind closed doors. His phone still buzzed in his hand. He answered it without taking his eyes off the house. You good? Came a familiar voice, Ridge. Deep, gravelly, the kind of voice that could calm a storm. Cole kept his voice low. Got a situation. What kind? Ridge asked, instantly serious. The kind where a kid asked me for a ride home. And now I wish I'd taken him anywhere but here. There was a rustling sound on the other end, as if Ridge were already putting on his boots. You want backup? Yeah, Cole said, jaw tight. Bring whoever's close. On it. Cole ended the call and walked toward the porch. He didn't barge in. He wasn't stupid. But he leaned close enough to hear the muffled yelling inside. A man's harsh voice. A smaller voice trying to answer. A thud. Silence. Then another thud. Cole's fingers twitched. He stepped back, forcing himself to breathe slow. The law didn't care about instinct, and men like Evan's father thrived on baiting others into bad decisions. If Cole kicked the door down now, the man would twist the story, claim a biker tried to invade his home. Evan would be dragged into interviews, maybe even forced to lie. And the father would go unpunished. Cole couldn't let that happen. He circled the yard quietly, checking windows. One on the side was cracked open just an inch. Enough for sound to slip out. He crouched and listened. Evan's voice, shaky, apologizing for leaving. Cole's stomach twisted. Then the father's voice, slurred, spitting venom. You embarrassed me. Running around with some biker trash? You want to act like a stray dog? Maybe I should treat you like one. Cole closed his eyes, jaw grinding. The man wasn't just angry. He was drunk. That made things worse. Drunk men didn't feel their own strength. They didn't know when to stop. Another smack echoed through the house, flesh hitting flesh. Cole stood up. He was done listening. He went back to the front, just in time to see the first bike headlights turning onto the street. The low rumble rolled like thunder between the houses. One by one, four bikes pulled up: Ridge, Mason, Tuck, and Blaze. These weren't patched-out outlaws. They were vets, blue-collar guys. Men who didn't start trouble, but sure as hell finished it when a kid was involved. Ridge killed his engine and stepped off, scanning Cole's face. What's going on? Cole motioned toward the house. Kid's inside. Dad's drunk. And he's hitting him. All four men stiffened. Blaze cracked his knuckles. All right. So how loud you want us to play this? Not loud, Cole said. Smart. Mason nodded toward the neighbors watching from behind curtains. Whole blocks awake. Good, Cole muttered. Ridge smirked. Pressure witnesses. I like it. Blaze tilted his head. We calling cops. Only after we get the kids safe, Cole said. Father's the type who'll clean up before they get here. The men nodded. They'd seen this too many times. Cole stepped toward the porch again, but this time, he wasn't alone. Four big, grim men followed him, standing in a loose formation, not threatening, just present, solid, unmovable. Cole knocked. The house went silent. A full 10 seconds passed before footsteps approached. The door swung open an inch, then the chain caught it. Evan's father peered through the gap, eyes bloodshot. What the hell do you want now? Cole's voice was calm. We need to see Evan. No, the man barked. He's fine. Get lost. Cole didn't blink. Open the door. Or what? The man sneered. You gonna gang up on me? You bikers think you can just. Ridge stepped closer, not touching the door, just letting his presence be felt. We heard what's happening inside. The whole neighborhood heard it. The man froze. Cole spoke again. Open it, or we call CPS, police, and the landlord. And we'll wait right here while they all show up. The father's smirk faltered, but then he tried to slam the door shut. Tuck slid his boot in fast, speed surprising for a man his size. The door thudded against it. Move your foot, the father snarled. No, Tuck said simply. The house fell silent. Then a small voice from inside whispered, Cole. That whisper hit harder than a shout. The father spun around. Get back in your room. No, Cole said sharply. He pressed a hand flat against the door. You lay another hand on him, and this stops being a conversation. The father hesitated, fear flickering under the anger. But then he reached for Evan again. And that was it. Ridge unhooked the chain with one swift movement. The door flew open. The father stumbled back. The bikers didn't charge in, they weren't idiots. But they stepped over the threshold enough that the man understood one thing clearly. He wasn't in control anymore. Cole crouched down, meeting Evan's eyes. You okay, kid? Evan nodded shakily, but the red mark on his cheek told the truth for him. Cole looked up at the father. Step away from him. The father opened his mouth, probably to curse, but when he saw the four other bikers staring him down, he shut it again. He actually stepped backward. Cole turned to Evan. You want to leave? Evan looked at his father, then at the floor, then at Cole. Yes, he whispered. Please. That single word ignited something fierce in every man standing there. Cole rose slowly, placing a hand on Evan's back. We're taking him, he told the father. You can't. He's my kid, the man snapped, but fear laced his voice now. Ridge folded his arms. Start yelling that around the cops tonight. See how that plays. Cole guided Evan out the door. The father lunged, but Blaze stepped in, blocking him with one massive arm. You try that again, Blaze growled, and we'll stop being polite. The father backed away, trembling with mixed rage and fear. Cole lifted Evan onto his bike, securing him gently. You're safe, he whispered. We got you. Evan clung to the back handle, but this time, his hands weren't shaking from fear, only adrenaline. As the engines roared to life, neighbors came out of their houses fully now, watching, whispering, some even recording. The father screamed curses from the porch, but no one listened. Because for the first time in a long time, Evan wasn't alone. And as Cole led the pack into the night, he knew this was only the beginning. Because a rescue was one thing. A safe future? That was another battle entirely. And Cole was ready for it. Cole kept his bike steady as the line of chrome thunder rolled out of the neighborhood, but his mind was anything but calm. Evan sat behind him, arms wrapped around his own stomach, chin tucked down, not crying, not talking, just holding himself together the way kids only do when they've had to grow up too fast. The other four bikers followed close, riding in a tight diamond formation around Cole like they were escorting a VIP. And in a way they were. The kid was shaking, but not from the cold. Not with a jacket wrapped around him and four bikes vibrating like protective animals on all sides. He was shaking because for the first time in who knows how long, someone had taken him away from the monster inside that house. After a few minutes, Cole slowed and turned into an empty lot by an old service station. The large overhead light hummed and flickered, ugly lighting, but bright enough to see each other's faces. Cole parked and swung off, motioning for Evan to stay seated for a moment. The kid obeyed instantly, like he was afraid moving wrong would make all of this disappear. The other men parked in a half circle around them. Ridge took off his helmet first. All right, he said gently. Let's figure out where this boy's supposed to be. But Cole knelt in front of Evan first. Hey, he said softly, eyes level with the kids. You hurt anywhere? Evan shook his head quickly, too quickly. Kid, Cole said, listen to my voice. No one here is mad at you. No one's yelling. You're safe right now, so I need you to answer for real. Evan's lips trembled. He looked down and lifted his sleeve slightly. A dark bruise wrapped around his forearm like a storm cloud. Cole inhaled, slow, steady, controlled. But his eyes hardened. Ridge muttered, Jesus. Mason crouched beside Cole. How long's that been there, bud? Evan hesitated. A few days. Cole exhaled through his nose, knuckles whitening against his thighs. He wanted to stand up and punch something. A wall. A tree. The father's face. But he forced himself still. Violence couldn't fix this right now. Evan wasn't done. He lifted his other sleeve. More bruises. Some old. Some new. Blaze whispered under his breath. That bastard. Tuck ran a hand over his beard. We gotta get CPS involved. Tonight. Cole nodded. Yeah. But first. He looked at Evan again. Where's your mom, kid? Evan's throat tightened. He left her, Evan whispered. Said she didn't listen. His voice cracked. She lives far. Doesn't have a car. I only see her sometimes. Cole felt something twist painfully inside him. Where? He asked gently. Evan named a town about 30 minutes away. And she's safe? Cole asked. The kid nodded. Yeah. She's good. I like it there. Cole and Ridge exchanged a look. It wasn't everything, but it was something. A direction. A possibility. Ridge rubbed his chin. We should call the police in that town. If Mom's safe, they'll guide us. Mason pulled out his phone. I'll make the call. But Evan stiffened suddenly, eyes wide. No, he whispered sharply. Don't tell my dad. He'll find me. He always finds me. Cole reached out and rested a hand on the kid's knee. Hey, look at me. Evan looked up, breath shaking. Your dad's not getting near you tonight. Or tomorrow. Or anytime soon. You hear me? Evan swallowed. He always does. Not this time, Cole said, voice like iron. Because this time, you got us. Something flickered in the kid's expression. Hope maybe. Or confusion. Or both. Ridge stepped closer. Kid, if your mom's the safe parent, police won't tell your dad anything. They'll protect you. But he'll be mad, Evan whispered. Cole shook his head. Let him be mad. Angry and alone in his empty house. That's his world. Not yours. The boy tried to blink the tears away, but they came anyway, quiet ones, sliding down his cheeks without a sound. He wiped them with his sleeve, embarrassed. Mason finished dialing and stepped aside to talk to dispatch. While he spoke, Blaze rummaged through his saddlebag and pulled out a bottled water and a snack bar. He handed them to Evan like he'd done this before. Here, Blaze said softly. Eat slow. You probably haven't had dinner, right? Evan hesitated, then unwrapped the bar and took a small bite. His shoulders loosened a little. Cole looked at Ridge. If we take him to his mom ourselves, Father might chase. He knows he messed up. He'll fight like hell to avoid cops. Let him, Ridge said. Every step he takes makes him look guiltier. And with 5 witnesses and half that neighborhood watching, he's cornered. Tuck nodded. We'll stay behind your bike. If that bastard tries anything, he won't get within 10 feet of the kid. Cole turned back to Evan. You ready to see your mom? Evan nodded, but then paused. What about my stuff? He asked quietly. My backpack. My clothes. My drawings. Cole softened. We can get those later. Safely. With the police. You don't have to walk back into that house tonight. Evan's shoulders relaxed a tiny bit. Then Mason came back. All right, he said. I talked to the PD in his mom's town. They're sending an officer to her house to notify her and stay with her until we get there. Evan's eyes widened. She's awake. She is now, Mason said with a smirk. Says she wants you home. Says she misses you. Something shimmered across Evan's face, like a light switching on inside him that had been turned off for too long. Cole squeezed the kid's shoulder gently. Hear that? Evan nodded. Then let's go. They mounted up again. Cole helped Evan get settled, double-checking his grip, making sure he felt secure. The engines roared to life, echoing across the empty lot. But this time, It wasn't the sound of confrontation. It was the sound of escape. Protection. Freedom. Cole pulled out first, the others forming a protective box around him. They rode through the small town streets, past quiet houses and sleeping neighborhoods, each mile taking Evan farther from the man who had stolen his childhood inch by inch. 15 minutes in, Cole felt the kid's helmet gently bump into his back, the first sign he was relaxing enough to lean on someone. He didn't adjust or shift. He let the kid rest. As they crossed into the neighboring town, streetlights brighter now, noise picking up, Ridge pulled closer. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" Ridge asked over the comms. Cole nodded, even though Ridge couldn't see it. "Yeah," Cole said. "This ain't just a drop-off. We're staying until he's legally safe." "Bet on it," Ridge replied. When they reached the street where Evan's mother lived, a patrol car was already parked out front, lights off, an officer standing by the hood. And next to him, wrapped in a coat, hands clasped together, eyes wide, was Evan's mother. Her breath caught when she saw them. Cole slowed to a stop. Evan didn't wait. He climbed off the bike before the engine even died, feet stumbling, legs shaking, and sprinted toward her. "Mom!" Her hands flew to her mouth, tears spilling instantly as she dropped to her knees and caught him mid-run, holding him so tight her knuckles went white. "Oh my God, baby, oh my God." Evan sobbed into her shoulder, real sobs now, loud and shaking, pouring out all the fear he'd kept inside for too long. The officer stepped back respectfully. Cole removed his helmet and watched quietly. Ridge crossed his arms. Blaze wiped his eyes pretending something got in them. Tuck cleared his throat. Mason looked away, jaw tight. This moment, made every mile worth it. But Cole knew something else too. This was only the beginning of the fight. Because Evan was safe for now. But dawn was coming. And so were the consequences. The night air was crisp as Cole and the crew pulled their bikes to a slow crawl along the quiet street outside Evan's mother's house. The faint glow from the porch light illuminated her face, tight with relief, but still pale from worry. Evan clung to her like he'd never let go, and Cole watched for a moment, letting the reunion play out. This was the payoff, the reason he'd risked the back roads, the dark forest, the unknown. But he knew the night wasn't over. Danger had a way of lingering, and Evan's father was unpredictable. "Stay close," Cole murmured, not taking his eyes off the shadows behind the neighboring houses. "We're not leaving until we know he won't follow." Evan's mother pressed a hand to the boy's back, stroking his hair gently. "He's okay now," she whispered, but Cole could see her shoulders tense as she glanced at the darkened street. Ridge was already scanning the perimeter, his head turning slowly, checking every driveway, every alley, every tree line. "I don't see him," he said, voice low. "But he's smart. He won't just give up." "Good," Cole said. "We'll stay with the kid a little longer. Make sure he's calm. Make sure she's calm. Then we coordinate the next move." Blaze walked over, carrying a blanket and a small backpack he'd grabbed from Cole's bike. "We can get him inside," he said gently, handing the blanket to Evan. "Keep him warm while we figure out the rest." Evan's mother looked at Cole, a mixture of gratitude and exhaustion in her eyes. "Thank you," she said softly. I don't know how to thank you enough." Cole shook his head. "You don't have to. Just make sure he stays safe now. That's all that matters." Mason crouched beside Evan, offering a reassuring smile. "You did good, kid. Really good. You hung in there." Evan nodded, still wrapped in the blanket, finally letting himself relax a little. But Cole could see the tension in his small frame, the way he kept glancing toward the dark streets, waiting for a threat that might not come, but probably would. Cole's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Ridge had sent a message. "Local PD is on standby at her place. Dad's car tracked leaving the area." "Good," Cole said, exhaling slowly. "He's gone for now, but we stay vigilant. No heroics tonight." The boy finally leaned against his mother, closing his eyes briefly, and for a moment, the world seemed normal. Cole allowed himself a small nod of satisfaction. But the night wasn't done teaching lessons. A sound caught his attention, a subtle, almost imperceptible crunch of gravel in the distance. Not the tires of a car, but footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. The kind that tried to stay quiet, but carried authority and malice in every step. Cole's eyes narrowed as he scanned the shadows. "Stay inside," he murmured to Evan's mother. "Lock the doors." She nodded immediately, ushering Evan inside, closing the door slowly behind them. Cole and his crew fanned out, walking the perimeter of the small yard, their boots silent on the pavement. Then a figure appeared, emerging from the shadows like a predator. Heavy coat, broad shoulders, face half hidden. The man froze when he saw Cole and the bikers, but his eyes, dark, calculating, never left Evan's mother's window. "That's him," Cole muttered under his breath. The father, still drunk, still dangerous, still convinced he had some twisted claim over the boy. Cole stepped forward, hands relaxed but ready. "This is your last warning," he said. "Leave. Walk away. You're done here." The man laughed, a low, bitter sound that carried across the street. "You think you can stop me?" he sneered. "I'm his father. I do what I want." Ridge stepped beside Cole. "Not tonight," he said firmly. "Tonight, you get nothing." The man's eyes flicked toward the window again, toward Evan. His voice dropped. "He's mine. He'll always be mine." Blaze moved closer, letting the man know their presence wasn't negotiable. "Step closer, and you'll find out exactly how wrong that is," he growled. The father hesitated. Rage warred with caution. He shifted on his feet, uncertainty breaking through the bravado. He had never faced this kind of opposition before. 5 solid men, all confident, all willing to act. Cole exhaled, steadying himself. "You're done. Go." Finally, the man stepped back, muttering curses under his breath. He turned and vanished into the night, the shadows swallowing him up. Cole waited. Even after the footsteps faded, even after the yard fell silent again, he waited a long minute. He had learned the hard way that monsters didn't always retreat. Sometimes they circled. Sometimes they waited. After a while, he nodded to the others. "He's gone for now, but let's make sure he can't come back." Ridge stepped forward. "We can check the surrounding streets. Make sure no cars or suspicious activity remain." Cole shook his head. "No. Tonight's enough. Tomorrow, we involve the cops properly. Let them track him. We stay here until the kid's asleep, then we leave quietly." Blaze glanced at Evan's mother. "We'll make sure he's safe before we go. That's a promise." Cole knelt beside Evan, who had cautiously opened the door again, peeking out from behind his mother. "See," Cole said softly. "He's gone. You're safe now." Evan's small hand reached for Cole's. "Really?" he asked, voice trembling. "Really," Cole said. "You don't need to be scared anymore." The boy smiled faintly, still weak, but it was the first real smile in hours. The kind that made Cole feel a deep, burning relief inside. Ridge clapped Cole on the shoulder. "You did good tonight," he said quietly. Cole nodded, but he didn't smile. He couldn't relax yet, not fully. Nights like this left shadows. They left questions. But for now, Evan was safe. And that was enough. The crew lingered a while longer, making sure the street remained quiet, that the father hadn't returned, that neighbors were watching. Every minute, every sound, every shadow was accounted for. Finally, when the night had fully settled and the boy's breathing had evened inside the house, Cole allowed himself to step back. The engines revved softly one last time, then silenced. He looked at Evan's mother. "He's yours now. Keep him safe." She nodded, tears still in her eyes. "I will. I promise." Cole gave a firm nod, then turned to the crew. Ridge, Blaze, Mason, and Tuck were already mounting their bikes. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They had all done this before. They knew the weight of what had just happened. Cole swung onto his bike last, glancing back once at the small house, the quiet street, the little family now whole again. The night had been long, dangerous, but tonight they had won. As the 5 bikes rolled out, their engines low and steady, Cole felt a strange mix of exhaustion and satisfaction. There would be paperwork. There would be calls. There would be reminders of how close things had come to going wrong. But those would wait. For now, all that mattered was that a scared little boy was safe, and that a biker had kept a promise. The darkness swallowed them as they disappeared into the night, leaving the small town quiet, the streetlights flickering, and the boy safe behind the doors of his mother's house. The morning light filtered weakly through the thin curtains of Evan's mother's house, casting soft shadows across the room. Inside, the boy slept peacefully, tucked under a blanket that smelled faintly of leather and motor oil, a reminder of the night that had changed everything. Cole sat in the living room, boots propped on the edge of a chair, quietly sipping coffee that tasted like ash and adrenaline. He didn't move much, just watched the street through the window. Instinct didn't sleep. Ridge leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes scanning the neighborhood outside. Quiet so far, he said. But that guy, Evan's dad, he's the kind who licks his wounds and comes back when he thinks no one's paying attention. Cole nodded. We can't relax yet. He won't stop just because we took the kid away. Men like him, they never stop until they get control back. Blaze stretched, cracking his shoulders. So what's the play? Do we wait? Do we call the cops again? Cole thought for a moment. We make sure Evan's mom knows the boundaries. We set up an exit plan if he shows up. And we keep eyes on the kid until he's stable. That's priority one. Everything else, secondary. Ridge tilted his head. You thinking of staying another night? I'm thinking until we know he can't get to him again. Maybe more than one night. Depends on how the father reacts. The room was quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator. Outside, the neighborhood was waking slowly. Dogs barking, a car starting down the street, birds flitting in the trees. The kind of normal sounds that seemed alien after last night. Mason tapped his phone. I've been tracking his vehicle movements. No signs he's left town, but he's not following known roads. If he's smart, he's lying low. Cole's jaw tightened. Or he's scouting, waiting, watching. Blaze frowned. He didn't have backup last night. If he comes back, he won't be alone. Cole took a deep breath. Then we make sure he doesn't have a chance. We control the situation before he even thinks he can act. Ridge nodded. So the kid stays inside, mom stays inside, and we patrol until the threat's gone. Cole looked at the boy's sleeping face again. Even now, his small hands twitched occasionally, like nightmares were still visiting. He hated the thought that last night had left shadows. But for the first time, those shadows weren't alone. There were people watching over him, ready to act. Hours passed slowly. Coffee cups piled on the counter. The crew rotated through the living room and porch, eyes scanning, radios at the ready. Every sound outside made them tense. Every car that drove by was noted, but nothing happened. By mid-afternoon, Evan woke. He stretched, rubbing his eyes, blinking at the sunlight that filtered through the blinds. For a moment, he looked confused, then the memories of last night crashed back. His eyes went wide. He bolted toward the living room. Cole was there, standing, motioning him to calm down. Easy, kid. You're safe. Evan's mother appeared, concern etched into her face. Hey, baby, you're okay. You're really okay. Evan hesitated, looking at Cole. Really? Cole knelt slightly. Yeah, for real. No one's going to hurt you now. Not tonight. Not ever again. The boy's shoulders sagged. Relief mixed with fear still lingered, but it was fading. Slowly, Ridge leaned against the doorframe. You want to tell him he doesn't have to be scared? Cole nodded. He doesn't. Not anymore. Even as they spoke, Cole's mind ran through possibilities. How long would it be before the father realized the boy was gone? Would he try legal avenues? Would he come back recklessly, drunk, violent? Every scenario passed through Cole's mind like rapid fire, calculating, planning, preparing. By late afternoon, a knock came at the door. Evan jumped slightly. Cole motioned for everyone to stay calm. He opened it slowly, revealing the local police officer from the previous night. Morning, the officer said, tipping his hat. We wanted to make sure everything's still safe. Any signs of trouble? Cole shook his head. Everything's quiet. The father's not been spotted. The boy's secure. His mom's keeping watch. The officer nodded. We'll keep a patrol nearby, just in case. Evan's mother smiled, relief evident. Thank you, she said softly. Cole nodded. You've got this now. Just follow the plan. Stay alert, but don't live in fear. The officer left, and Cole closed the door. They spent the evening making sure the kid was fed, warm, and comfortable. Cole, Ridge, Blaze, Mason, and Tuck rotated shifts, patrolling outside, keeping eyes on the neighborhood, and checking in constantly. They didn't speak much. Words weren't necessary. The message was clear. The kid was theirs to protect tonight, and nothing would change that. Night fell again. The boy had dinner, a warm bath, and finally sat on the couch with a book his mother had found. Cole stayed nearby, pretending to read along, but always watching. Outside, the street remained quiet, but every shadow, every rustle, every flicker of movement was noted. Hours later, Evan yawned and leaned against his mother. "I'm tired," he whispered. "You've had a long night," she said, stroking his hair. "Sleep now. You're safe." Cole watched as the boy's eyelids drooped, finally surrendering to sleep. Relief and exhaustion washed over him. The main threat had been neutralized for now, but Cole knew the real battle was always ongoing. Protection wasn't just a moment, it was constant. Vigilance never ended. He rose quietly, walking to the window to scan the street one last time. Everything looked normal: quiet houses, dim lights, soft night noises. But Cole didn't relax. Not yet. Not fully. He knew the father would eventually realize the boy was gone. But tonight, they had won. The kid was alive. Safe. And for now, that was enough. Ridge came up behind him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did good," he said simply. Cole didn't answer. He didn't need to. Words weren't necessary. They had all done what they came here to do: protect, defend, and ensure a child had a chance at safety. Outside, the night remained still. The house glowed faintly with light inside. And inside that house, a boy slept, unaware that heroes in leather and steel were guarding his dreams. Tomorrow, the fight would continue, but tonight, the victory was quiet, solid, and complete. Dawn arrived with a pale, washed-out light spilling over the small town, painting the streets in shades of gray. The night had been long and tense, but now, as Cole stood by the window, he allowed himself a small moment to breathe. Evan slept peacefully upstairs, curled up under blankets, a faint smile tugging at his lips, a rare sight after everything he had been through. Outside, Ridge, Blaze, Mason, and Tuck were performing a final sweep of the neighborhood. Their presence was subtle but deliberate. They didn't want to alarm the neighbors, yet they were unmistakably there to anyone who might try to cause trouble. Cole checked his phone again. No updates from the father, no sign of movement on the roads. For now, the threat seemed to have dissipated. Cole poured himself a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter. The quiet of the house was almost jarring after the chaos of the previous night, but he knew better than to trust it. He had seen men like Evan's father operate before. They didn't disappear, they adapted. They waited for an opening, for the perfect moment to strike. Evan's mother joined him in the kitchen, her hair messy, eyes tired but shining with relief. "How long do you think he'll stay gone?" she asked quietly, not wanting to wake the boy. Cole shook his head. "It's hard to say. Men like him don't change overnight. But right now, you have time. You have a window. Make it count." She nodded, swallowing her fear. I just want him to be safe. I can't lose him again." "You won't," Cole said firmly. "Not tonight. Not ever again if we can help it." They didn't speak for a while, listening to the faint sounds of the town waking up. Then the phone rang. Cole answered quickly. It was Ridge. "Dad's been spotted," Ridge said quietly. "He's still in town, moving slow. No vehicle yet. Probably foot. Heading toward the old mill road." Cole's jaw tightened. "We can't let him get close to the kid." "We'll handle it," Ridge replied. "I'm already coordinating a perimeter. He won't get near the house." Cole hung up and turned to Evan's mother. "Stay with him. Keep the doors locked. Don't answer anyone you don't know. We're taking care of the rest." She nodded, guiding Evan back into the living room. "I'll do whatever it takes," she said softly. By mid-morning, the bikers had spread out strategically around the neighborhood. Ridge and Tuck covered the roads leading into town, while Blaze and Mason patrolled the alleyways and less visible paths. Cole stayed close to the house, watching, waiting, listening. Every creak, every whisper of movement, every distant sound was analyzed. Hours passed. The father had not approached. It seemed he was aware he was being watched, cautious, frustrated. But Cole knew that frustration could turn into recklessness. Men like him always underestimated those protecting what they wanted most. Evan woke again, alert and cautious. He peeked out the window, eyes scanning the street. Cole crouched beside him, keeping his tone calm. "See anything?" Cole asked. Evan shook his head, but his hands trembled slightly. "I'm scared he'll come back," he whispered. Cole nodded. "I know. That's why we're here. You don't have to be afraid. Not while we're around." The boy swallowed and nodded, trusting Cole's words even if his heart raced. It wasn't easy for him to believe that anyone could truly protect him after everything he had endured. But the presence of the bikers, steady and unyielding, provided a new kind of reassurance. By late afternoon, Cole decided it was time to start planning the next steps. The father wouldn't simply vanish. Legal intervention was necessary to ensure long-term safety. He contacted the local police and social services, providing detailed accounts of the night's events, evidence of the father's aggression, and the kid's current location. The authorities promised immediate action, including a formal protection order. While Cole coordinated with the police, Ridge and Blaze returned to the house, checking in with Evan and his mother. They brought snacks, water, and even a small toy, a gesture that felt almost ceremonial after the tension-filled night. Evan's mother smiled, grateful for the normalcy they were trying to restore. Evening approached, and Cole finally allowed himself a rare moment of quiet reflection. The streets were calm, the boy asleep once more, and the neighborhood seemingly peaceful. But he knew the work wasn't over. Protecting Evan was more than a single night of vigilance. It was ensuring that the threat was neutralized for good. As he stepped outside for a final perimeter check, he spotted the father's vehicle parked several blocks away. The man was pacing, agitated, but still not daring to approach. Cole signaled to Ridge, who was already nearby, and they watched quietly, letting him stew in his own frustration. Hours later, the father left town. No confrontation, no chaos, just a slow retreat, defeated by the unyielding presence of the bikers and the certainty that he could no longer intimidate or harm his son. Cole exhaled, tension leaving his body in slow waves. Back inside the house, Evan slept soundly, his mother keeping a protective watch. Cole and the crew gathered briefly in the living room, exchanging nods and subtle acknowledgments. No words were necessary. They had completed what they came to do. Cole looked out the window one last time before leaving. The boy's world was safe, at least for now, and the mother could breathe easier. But he knew life wouldn't be completely free from shadows. There would be reminders, challenges, and moments of fear. Yet tonight had proven that even in the darkest times, protection, courage, and loyalty could carve out a sanctuary. As they mounted their bikes and prepared to leave, Evan stirred briefly, murmuring in his sleep. Cole paused, glancing at him, and offered a small, reassuring smile. "Safe," he whispered. "Always safe." The bikers rolled out slowly, engines low and steady, disappearing into the night as the first stars appeared overhead. Behind them, a small family began to rebuild, fortified by courage, love, and the silent guardians who had ensured their safety. Weeks had passed since that night, but the echoes of what happened still lingered in Evan's life. The small town had returned to its usual rhythm. Kids playing in yards, neighbors chatting over fences, dogs barking. But for Evan, the world had changed forever. He wasn't the same scared boy who had hidden on the highway, unsure if anyone could be trusted. He had been given a chance to heal, and every day he grew a little stronger. Cole and his crew had stayed nearby for the first few days, making sure the father didn't attempt anything foolish. The police had issued a protection order, and social services had set up a plan for supervised visits only, if any. The father's brief attempt to reassert control had been met with a firm, legal response, and the man had finally retreated for good. The boy was free. Evan's mother had thrown herself into rebuilding their lives, though she was careful not to smother him. She wanted him to feel safe, independent, and loved, not trapped. Slowly, he began to smile more, speak more, and even laugh again. But it wasn't easy. Every shadow, every raised voice, every sudden noise reminded him of the terror he had endured. Cole came by one afternoon, alone this time. He leaned against the doorway as Evan sat on the porch steps, reading a small book his mother had bought. "Hey," Cole said softly. Evan looked up, squinting against the sun, then smiled faintly. "Hey," he replied. "You've been doing good," Cole said. "I mean it. Really good." The boy shrugged, trying to act casual, but the faint pride in his eyes betrayed him. "How's school?" Cole asked. Evan grimaced. "Hard. I don't like talking about last week with anyone. Some kids ask too many questions." Cole nodded. "That's okay. You don't have to tell anyone unless you want to. You survived something huge, and that's enough for now." Evan looked down at his hands, fidgeting slightly. I, I don't want to be scared anymore. I don't want to hide. You won't have to, Cole said firmly. Not while people like me are around. Not while your mom's around. You're safe, Evan. That's permanent now. The boy smiled, finally letting himself feel some relief. Cole stayed for a while longer, just talking, listening, and making sure Evan felt normal again. He didn't lecture, he didn't scold, he just provided a quiet presence that was unwavering. Sometimes that was all a child needed, to know that someone else was there, watching, caring, protecting. Later that evening, the whole crew gathered outside for a final check. Ridge, Blaze, Mason, and Tuck had all come by, sharing small snacks and warm drinks, talking lightly, making jokes to lighten the mood. The tension that had hung over the house for weeks was gone, replaced by a sense of safety and calm. Evan watched from the porch, quiet but alert. He had learned a lot in a short time. Courage, trust, the difference between fear and vigilance. He had learned that some people, even strangers, would stand up and protect you when no one else could. That lesson had reshaped him. His mother came outside, holding a cup of tea. I think we owe them more than thanks, she said, glancing at Cole and the others. Cole shook his head. Don't worry about it. Seeing Evan safe is enough. Blaze grinned. Yeah, it's not about thanks. It's about doing the right thing. That's it. The boy finally stepped down from the porch, a bit taller than before, shoulders squared. He walked toward the bikers, stopping a few feet away. Thanks, he said quietly, but with sincerity. For everything. Cole knelt slightly to meet his eyes. You did the hard part, kid. We just made sure you got the chance to finish it. Evan nodded, and for the first time, he didn't look scared. He looked like a boy who had survived and begun to grow again. After a moment, he ran back to his mother, wrapping his arms around her. She held him tightly, whispering assurances, and Cole and the crew watched silently, feeling the weight of what they had accomplished. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of pink and orange, Cole climbed onto his bike. The engines rumbled softly, a sound that had once meant danger, but now carried a note of protection and camaraderie. Time to go, he said, swinging his leg over. Ridge, Blaze, Mason, and Tuck followed suit, forming their protective formation one last time. They didn't need to stay. The threat was gone. Their work was done. But the lesson remained. Courage and loyalty mattered. And they had proven it. Cole looked back once at Evan and his mother standing on the porch. He gave a small nod, a silent promise. Stay safe, he whispered. Then the engines roared, and the bikers disappeared down the quiet street, leaving behind a family that could finally breathe, a boy who could finally dream, and a town that had witnessed quiet heroism unfold. In the end, it wasn't about glory, recognition, or thanks. It was about doing what was right, protecting the innocent, standing firm when others could not. And sometimes, that was enough to change a life forever. Evan would remember that night, not just for the fear he had endured, but for the bravery, loyalty, and unwavering protection that had given him a chance to be safe again. And that lesson, quietly carved into his young heart, would stay with him for the rest of his life. The bikers rode into the fading light, leaving behind more than just a rescued boy. They left a legacy of courage, of honor, and of the unspoken promise that sometimes heroes didn't wear capes. They rode on bikes, and they never let the innocent face danger alone.